Hey guys, welcome back to Founder Story, where you learn the genesis of your favorite brands told by their founders. I'm Dan Larson, creator and host of Founder Story. This is Season 1, Episode 4, with Taylor Dame from Proof Eyewear and Range Travel Goods. On this episode, you'll learn how Taylor and his brothers took their love of woodworking from their garage in Idaho to the TV show Shark Tank, and how they've grown a very successful eyewear company that has a boots-on-the-ground approach to giving back. You'll also hear how Taylor's leveraging Kickstarter to launch successful businesses, including his latest, Range Travel Goods. At the end of the episode, I'll announce the winners of our giveaway. But first, music from Joakim Karud. You spell that like Joakim Noah, the basketball player, if you know him. Karud, K-A-R-U-D. Also music on this episode from Andrew Apple Pie. Go to andrewapplepie.com to get links to all of his music. I love supporting these independent artists. I hope you do too. All right, man, here we go. So on this week's episode of Founder Story, I am joined by Taylor Dame from Proof Eyewear, the ultimate travel pillow, the duo. Taylor's doing a lot of stuff. Taylor, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Great. So today we're going to cover a lot of ground. You're a busy guy. You're in a lot of things. What I want to do first is talk about, kind of go all the way back to the beginning. So your family has been like in the lumber industry for a long time. How did that come about? Where did that start?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So it's a really cool story, actually. So my grandfather, he was a truck driver of all things, and he lived in southern Utah. He lived in Kanab. And the story goes, he actually was super, super generous with people. So he actually loaned some money to this guy. And the guy came back a few months later and said, "Hey, I'm not going to be able to pay you back." And so my grandpa was like, "All right, well, let's work something out." And the guy said, "Well, I have this millwork equipment. Like, it's basically, you can make wood moldings, like trim for your house." And my grandfather had no experience in that, but he said, "Hey, if I'm not going to get any money, I might as well get this equipment and see what I can do with it." So yeah, the guy gave him the equipment, and he set up shop in McNabb, Utah. And basically, what he'd do is he'd run this millwork equipment all week, and it was him and like two guys. And he'd load his truck full of molding, and then he'd drive out to California every weekend and sell it. And that's how our family business got started. That was over 60 years ago, and now our family company is called Wood Grain Millwork. And I mean, one of our biggest customers is the Home Depot, and so it's kind of a national brand with doors, windows, and moldings. Wow. So, were you always around this growing up? Like when you were a kid, did you work at the family mill? And, yeah. And what did that look like? Oh my gosh, man! It was like every summer it was just the expectation to go work in the mill, and it was literally stacking wood, pushing wood through molders. And it was really funny because a couple years ago, I was talking to my dad about it. I was like, "Yeah, so we started. I think we were like 13 or 14 when we first started." I was like, "Was that the age that you could start working around heavy equipment?" And he just starts laughing. I was like, "Well," he's like, "What are the regulations?" Yeah, exactly. He's like, "No, man, we just put you in there. We weren't supposed to, but that's what we did." And so, I mean, my first job was literally, I think I was like 10, and I was like picking up cigarette butts in the parking lot, and then from there stacking wood, and then from there pushing wood through molders. And so, yeah, every summer, and then even, I mean, sometimes even it was a punishment. I remember one time it was right before spring break, and we were planning on this big ski vacation, and me and my brother, like the night before, we ended up in a car with our friends paintballing houses, and we actually got pulled over. And oh, no way! Yeah, we got taken downtown. So my dad showed up, picked us up. He's like, "We're not going on vacation. You guys are working in the mill this week." that was the punishment. Well, yeah, your dad did well, because I think when I was that age, my dad was lucky to get me to like mow the lawn. So if you were out in the parking lot and working in the mill, that's pretty good. No, and honestly, it was a huge kind of learning experience for us, and more than anything is motivation, because you see people and they take a lot of pride in what they do, but at the same time, at the end of the day, my brothers and I looked at each other like, we don't want to end up having to work for whatever at the $6 an hour at the time or whatever, pushing wood through molders. And so it was motivation to get an education and kind of aspire to do a little bit more in life.
You have two brothers?
So there's actually 5 of us. I'm the youngest of 5, and but there are 2 of us that are involved with Proof.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah. So was it just like your family that was working the mill, or did you have like cousins and it's like the whole family was part of this?
Yep, exactly. So even today, there's about 6 of us family members that are still heavily involved with it. Cousins, cousin-in-laws, my uncle, my dad, and so it's definitely a family business.
Wow. So this mill company has been around for a long time. I think maybe like in the 50s that started, or the 60s.
It's been over 60 years. So yeah, it was in the late 50s.
Okay. Wow. So if we fast forward to like 2010, your brother Brooks,
correct? Yeah.
He's working on a side project. I think I read on your website that he was wanting to create some ski poles out of bamboo, and that didn't work, but that was kind of the beginnings of Proof. Is that right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it's really interesting. I mean, my brother Brooks, if you meet him, he's the definition of kind of entrepreneurial. He's kind of like the idea guy. He's always kind of has his head in the clouds as far as like, oh, we should do that. We should do this. And it's really cool because he always brings these really great ideas to the table. And I don't think he'd be offended if I said it. His execution isn't always like, the follow through isn't there, but I mean, he always is like, hey, we should try this, try that.
He's an ideas guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, that's kind of how it started. He was in his garage. I mean, his garage, we always give him a hard time because his garage is full of all of his ideas that he's had. And so he was in his garage kind of tinkering around, and he wanted to make a bamboo ski pole. And we're big skiers, and so he thought it was a great idea. And then he kind of looked into it and realized that there's actually already someone doing that. And then looked into it a little bit further and realized, well, skiing is, I mean, you got snow sports, and then skiing, it's even a smaller niche, and realized that it's seasonal. And so he said, maybe I like the idea of wood just because that's our heritage, right? We grew up in the sawmill. And so he wanted to do something with wood. And so he started looking around, and what happened was he was online one night and he came across a pair of these old Japanese reading glasses made of wood. And he thought to himself, hey, that's pretty cool. I mean, these are really cool. And they were like, I think they're like 100 years old. He saw a picture of it online. He's like, hey, I could do different types of wood, put dark lenses in them, and voila, right? You got some sunglasses. So that's kind of how the idea with Proof started.
Tell me a little bit about how that process for maybe the prototyping and coming up with the first one after you had that idea of, hey, we could just throw in some lenses and we could have some really cool sunglasses. What were you involved? What was that process like? Yeah,
absolutely. So, I mean, up to that point, so the 3 of us, at that point, Brooks was kind of the one driving it still. Mm-hmm. But between Tanner, Brooks, and myself, we'd actually had some experience with working with manufacturers in China. And so Alibaba.com is a huge resource for people that are interested in producing, I mean, any type of product in China. And so that's kind of where it started. We went basically to a manufacturer in China and said, hey, these are the concept wood sunglasses, someone that was already dealing with wood. And they basically started coming up with prototypes and sending them over, and we'd start tweaking it from there. And so it was about that time that my brother Brooks was like, hey, this is something that could really work. And Tanner and I were in school at the time. And I mean, Tanner was about to finish up. I still had a little less than a year left, I guess. And we were super excited about it and said, hey, I mean, we're happy to jump in. And so about that time was the time that Brooks said, hey, if you guys wanted to be a part of it, let's create a partnership and go after it.
Cool. So he started that around 2010. The idea came out. When did the prototypes get produced, and when did he come to you and say, hey, are you guys interested in pursuing this with me? Was that 2011, 2012, or did that happen pretty quickly?
It was late 2010. I remember I actually transferred to BYU Hawaii, and he actually sent a bunch of prototypes with me. He's like, hey, get pictures, test these out with your friends. And so that's what we did. I mean, I took a bunch of the prototypes out there, and that was late 2010, fall of 2010. And then we, from that testing, we went ahead and got our first production run. And right then, before our production run even came, we had talked to someone that we grew up with in Ontario, Oregon, that had been he was in the shoe business. And so he said, hey, if you guys really want to get serious about this, you need to go to a trade show. And so before we even had our production run in, we signed up for this trade show. So our first production run came in, and next thing we knew, we were in Las Vegas at the Magic Trade Show, which is a huge, just anything to do with just clothing, fashion, huge fashion trade show. And it takes place in Vegas 2 times a year.
Yeah. Actually, Shandy, when she worked for like a day spa and retail that's around here, I remember that she went to that show and she was like, this place is crazy.
It's crazy, man.
Huge.
This is never ending. I mean, it's 3 or 4 days long, and you could spend every single day and not see the same product over and over. It's crazy. They have sections for shoes, section for women, section for men, and everything in between. So it's nuts.
Wow. So you have your prototypes. You haven't done your first production run yet, or it's in process, and you go to this trade show.
No, so we actually and it was a buying trade show. And so we actually showed up to the trade show with our first production run. And it was a really cool experience. I mean, we showed up not knowing what we were doing. We set up our booth, and we kind of what we did actually is we brought in the sawdust from our family's wood business, and that's what we used as like a floor covering. And so people came into our booth and they tracked it out, and we were kind of making the joke is like, man, there's like a trail leading to our booth of this of these sawdust shavings, and it's funny because we were setting up, and this guy across from us, he's like, oh yeah, I do the show every year. The first year is always tough. Don't get discouraged if you guys don't put together any orders.
Right.
And so that's kind of the attitude that we took. Like, all right, let's just give it a shot. I mean, if it doesn't work out, I mean, if we don't get a lot of orders, that's okay, because that's what this guy's saying that we should expect. And the show started, and the first day, I mean, we were just slammed. We had people like lined up just to get into our booth to see our product. And it was funny because about halfway through the show, this guy was across from us. Like I said, he's doing some t-shirts, and he'd had a lot of success as well. He was selling to Urban Outfitters occasionally and different things. And he just looked over at us and saw our booth, and he was just like shaking his head. Like, I can't believe you guys, man, you guys are just absolutely killing it. And so it was crazy. We were writing orders. All 3 of us were just writing orders. And so that first trade show, we probably walked away from the show with about 20 orders in hand.
Wow.
And which is super good. I mean, and it's interesting because trade shows have kind of evolved over the last few years, and people don't really write orders anymore as they used to. But that first trade show, we're like, man, this is it. We just got to come to these trade shows and we're in business.
So totally surpassed what you guys could have imagined would happen at that show.
Absolutely.
And by when you said that it's a buying trade show, it's not like consumers that come to the show to look to buy stuff. It's companies, buyers, retailers that want to make purchases for their stores. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, the buyer from Nordstrom will come in, and you got everything from like a Nordstrom all the way to your mom and pop boutique. They all come to that trade show looking to buy. So yeah, and then they'll write an order right there. And like I said, it's kind of interesting because it's kind of evolved. And so a lot of people, we kind of refer to it as a high five fest. And it's like, now it's just everybody's coming in and throwing high fives and saying, good to see you, and not writing orders. And so we've kind of changed strategies. We don't go to a lot of trade shows anymore.
I want to go back just really, really briefly and talk about kind of the process for getting those first glasses manufactured. Because in my head, before you and I started talking, I thought, okay, well, you have the sawmill creating sunglasses. Like I can't imagine that. Like there's some things that seem like straightforward in my mind. Like I can work through like how you would make them.
Yeah.
Sunglasses or eyewear seems incredibly like difficult and intricate. Was it just that you found somebody with Alibaba that had experience that could kind of help guide you guys through that, or you just figured it out?
No, exactly. And we leaned on our manufacturer quite a bit, and it was really interesting because we actually we go to China about every 1 or 2 times a year at least. And so it's interesting because the first time we went over there, we realized these people are just like us. It's a family business. Yeah. They have their kids working in the facility. And it's interesting because, I mean, a lot of people ask like, oh, you guys must get your wood from the family business, which, I mean, it's a different wood. We do a lot of softwoods with the family business, and everything with the eyewear is hardwood. And so yeah, that's one aspect. But yeah, I mean, it was really cool to go over and see, hey, we're a family business. These guys are a family business. And there's kind of a lot of negative kind of connotations or negative feelings towards having manufacturing in China, but it was really cool to see like, hey, they're just like us.
There's people too that are
no, exactly.
It's making a living.
Yeah. And whatever, like child labor laws and their
Right.
poor working circumstances. But you go into their facility and it's extremely clean. I mean, we grew up working in a wood manufacturing facility, and it's like, man, these guys are probably cleaner than us. Yeah. But yeah, so it was really cool to be able to see that. And so like I said, we leaned on them quite a bit. And it was interesting because initially, I mean, the quality was fine initially when we started out, but it's gotten a lot better as we've kind of gone over the years and created new processes. I mean, when we first started, it was literally a solid piece. Like every piece was a solid piece of wood. So the temples, the front of the frame, and we ran into some quality issues initially with people would put them on their dashboard and then turn on the heater in their car and they'd start cracking. And so,
oh, wow.
But bamboo seemed to work well. So we shifted everything to a lot of bamboo. And then now everything's like a layer. It's basically a layer kind of design. And so it's literally like a skateboard deck. I mean, you have a skateboard deck that has 5 or 6 layers, and that's kind of how our sunglasses are now. And they hold up a lot better. And kind of, like I said, we've leaned on those manufacturers and said, hey, we should try this. And we said, hey, we're willing to bring those in and try them out as samples and kind of evolved from there.
Kind of perfected the mix and the woods and what goes into it. One thing that I found interesting, my wife Shandy actually got me a pair of Proof sunglasses for Christmas this past year, and I wanted them because they look cool and because I knew it was your family, and I kind of expected that they would be like a little bit rigid because I thought they're wood, they're going to be a little bit rigid, but I don't know if it's the kind of hinges you use or what, but they're actually like really flexible and comfortable to wear, which I kind of, like I said, I didn't expect that, because they're wood. So that's cool that you guys have figured that out and kind of perfected that fit. So the name Proof, the logo with the bird, where does all of that come from?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a great question. So the name Proof, it's essentially, when we started Proof, it was 2010 and social media was becoming more and more prevalent and everybody's on social media. And so we kind of looked at the name as Proof as like, hey, this is proof that it's real. It's not, I mean, people get on social media and they post these pictures and it's like, it's not real life, right? I mean, they only post the best parts of their life. And, and so that's kind of, I mean, that's not exactly how we got the name, but it's like, this product's real. It comes straight from the earth. It's proof that it comes from the earth. And when you hold it and you touch it, it's just proof that it's real and the product's real. And that's kind of how we got the name. And
the natural elements.
Exactly. Yeah. And then with the bird logo, it's a bird with, if you haven't seen it, it's a bird with a little kind of turnkey in the back, like a toy little turnkey on the back. And so the idea there is when we started Proof, we wanted to have an element where we gave back. And so we call it our Do Good program. And so the concept behind the bird with a little key on the back is that everybody has wings to fly, but some people need a little bit of help. And so we do a lot of, every year we do a big trip, and sometimes it's in the US, sometimes it's not. We've been to India, we've been to El Salvador, Philippines. Last year we were in Uganda, and this year it's looking like we're going to go to Nepal and we team up with like-minded nonprofit organizations, and we go out and do a lot of eye camps and eye screenings, and we've built houses and all sorts of stuff. And so that was always a big driver for creating a business is, why do we want to do this? And so it's not just let's make a cool product and hope people like it, but we want to have some aspect where we're giving back and something that we could be really proud of, not only just the product.
So the fact that that's part of your logo, I think, shows that was part of your vision, I assume, from the very beginning, is that was an important aspect of the business to you guys, is to give back. I actually looked on your website. I think it said that in 2016, you guys gave back like 12% of your profit, of your revenue, to these programs. Yeah. So it's something you guys are really committed to doing. Do you have any experiences? So you mentioned you've been to did you go to all of these countries? Were there any kind of cool stories that you want to share about, doing these programs? Because I was looking, there's like these crazy numbers of eye exams that you guys have done and cataract surgeries. And this isn't just like a small side thing. You guys really take this seriously.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, there's so many great organizations out there. And I mean, if you want, you can donate a lot of money and you just trust that they're going to take care of it and do good things with it. And for the most part, I think organizations do, but we wanted to be kind of boots on the ground type of experiences for us. And so, I mean, like last year we were in Uganda, and one of the coolest experiences is we were able to actually be in the operating room with a doctor that was performing cataract surgeries. And so we were 12 inches away from this guy's this guy's eyes, watching the process, literally seeing him come in, not being able to see, and then walk out of the room knowing that once his eyes heal, he's going to be able to go home and see his kids, and for the first time in a really, really long time. And I mean, it was definitely a really, really cool experience. And I mean, in addition to that, we helped build a school last year, and we had to move these bricks from the main road. And I mean, the infrastructure is really bad. So it's like, on this main road, that's the closest they can get to dumping these bricks. And then we had to take it all the way up this hill, the side of the hill. That's where the property was that we're building this school for this orphanage. And so we had I think there's about 20 volunteers. And so we make a chain gang kind of passing up these bricks. And we're like, man, there's still a lot of space in between. And all of a sudden, all these orphans come up from the orphanage and they fill in all the gaps. And we were literally there for 2 hours just passing bricks. And I kid you not, I mean, there's like 4-year-olds there just like helping pass these bricks up the hill. And it would have taken us like days to do it. And because they were just willing to jump in and they were so excited to have a school, to have a school to go to that was theirs, they were just so excited to jump in and help us. And it was a really cool experience. We have a really cool video just of these bricks going up the side of the hill with all these orphans in their uniforms. It was amazing.
Helping out. Wow, that's incredible. And where was that?
That was in Uganda.
Yeah. Wow. So you guys have had a lot of success with Proof, and in a minute I want to get into like Shark Tank and talk about your experience there. But looking back, what do you see as some of the challenges that you guys had with getting the business up to where it is now?
At the end of the day, we had no business being in the eyewear industry. We had no idea what we were doing. And so we kind of took the motto as try a lot of things and fail quickly. We weren't afraid of failing, but we knew that if we did fail, we were going to realize it quickly and make a change. And so, I mean, we tried a lot of different things, and we learned a lot from it. I mean, it was really interesting. Like I said, I was still in school when we started, and within that first year of starting Proof and really sending out orders and getting that customer base and going online and figuring out our marketing strategy, I learned more in that first year than I did in all of my college experience, combined. Not exaggerating. I mean, I learned so much, and it was just because it was just like we had to. I mean, we were basically it. If we didn't do it, then it wouldn't have gotten done. And so, and it was a really just kind of skeleton team at the beginning. It was two of my brothers and I, and we had a high school kid that was helping us package, and then from there we kind of grew out and brought in some friends that jumped in and helped us with sales and fulfillment and different things like that, and kind of grew from there. But I mean, that first year, it was a struggle. I mean, we basically would throw anything up against the wall and see what's stuck, and that's what we went forward with.
Different designs, different marketing plans,
Absolutely.
Different whatever it took to find success.
Yeah, I mean, we would literally, it's marketing specifically. I was kind of in charge of sales and marketing. As anybody that came to us and said, hey, you should try this for marketing, we said, great, let's do it. And we'd spend the least amount of money that we could, and said, hey, let's give it a try. We're open to it. We're open to anything. And then we'd basically give it a month or two. And if it didn't try, we'd just cut it off as quick as we could, just because, I mean, we didn't have a lot of money for marketing initially. So
kind of to that point, I remember on your episode of Shark Tank, and I think I saw it before this, is that you guys didn't do marketing where you'd try to send product to famous people and ask or plead that they wear it, but you did. Some famous people were spotted wearing Proof eyewear. How did that come about? When did you guys see that for the first time? Because it looks like that's happened a lot now, and just because the product is cool.
Yeah. No, it's we've done a lot of different things. Is initially, like the first really big name that just randomly, we didn't send anything out, was Beyonce. And when that happened, we're like, holy cow, like how did that even happen? Like
there's not a much bigger name.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it was just like, holy cow, man. And it was a total like paparazzi shot. She was like, I think it was when she was pregnant or something, but she was like walking through the street, like, holy cow. So we used that picture quite a bit. From there, I mean, we had Snoop Dogg, and Snoop Dogg we had a friend of a friend that's like, oh, I think I can get some sunglasses of Snoop Dogg. I was like, all right. And so we just tried it, and eventually all of a sudden we see Snoop Dogg wearing a pair. And then one thing that we've done in really early on, and we still do, is if a bigger name is, especially like an artist, is coming through Boise, which Boise isn't a huge market, but we occasionally get some really, really good, I mean, musicians that come through.
Yeah.
Is we'll actually just on Twitter reach out to their management and say, hey, if you have time, come by the shop. And our shop's really close to one of the bigger venues downtown in Boise. And so come by the shop. We'd love to show you our stuff and get the team geared out. And so it usually turns out they show up with their entourage, and so it's not just one pair, it's like 15, but it's still cool.
15 pair of glasses.
And to be honest, it's really fun because we get to meet them, and sometimes they'll stick around and we'll do a quick interview with them and have them wearing the stuff. And so it's really fun. And for the most part, they're just really down to earth people. And so through that, we've been able to, Macklemore is one of the first ones that we were able to do that with. And he's actually gone on stage with our sunglasses a few different times, which was really cool to see. But yeah, it's kind of grassroots. I mean, we don't really reach out, and because there's all sorts of people that will email us and say, hey, we have a gifting suite at this event and pay us like $10,000 plus give us 100 pairs of glasses. And these people come through and they have a backdrop and they just take picture after picture, it's not super organic, and that's not the route we wanted to go. So it's really
kind of forced. Yeah.
Yeah. It's more, a little bit more natural. And we say, hey, I mean, if you like them, great. If you don't, I mean, give them to someone else.
That's cool too. Yeah. So I'm glad you mentioned the store because I wanted to talk about that. When did the brick and mortar location open? Has that been around from the beginning? Did you guys start online mostly, or doing the trade shows? You mentioned you don't do those as much anymore. When did the store come about? Yeah,
that's a great question. So it's been evolving. It's really hilarious. I mean, we literally started in the garage, and it was funny because my brother, when we first started, Brooks, he had his full-time job, and so he'd come home, hit the garage door opener, and we'd be back there like packaging packages, man, like late into the night. And so anyways, and then from there we outgrew the garage just because of inventory demands, really. And we moved into this spot in Boise, and it was just like, we wanted to find a spot that would be able to carry all of our inventory. And that was basically it. That was our requirement. So we ended up kind of in this weird part of town, and it was an old gun shop, and it literally looked like a saloon. And so it had like the swing open doors. In the bathroom. The toilet paper roll was a gun, and so you like put the toilet paper on the gun.
Please tell me you kept that.
No, it wasn't like we were leasing the space, okay. And so, but it's funny. So we called that one the saloon, and then from there we outgrew that spot, and we ended up in this like business park that just had lots of space, and it worked out really well. And and that's kind of when we first started really getting serious about like a retail spot. And so we had a little area for retail, but it wasn't in a great spot in Boise. It was in an Eagle and kind of tucked away. Mm-hmm. And then from there we moved downtown into a spot called Bodo, which is kind of like an area of downtown Boise that's kind of up and coming a little bit. I shouldn't say up and coming. It's kind of a cool spot in Boise.
Yeah.
And we were leasing that, and then basically they said they were going to bump the rent on us. And then from there we ended up buying our own place downtown in this really cool old building. It used to actually be a furniture store back in the day, and it's like all brick and like really cool exposed beams and all sorts of stuff like that. And so that's where we're at now. And so we've gone from the garage and the 4 other spaces to where we are now. We call it our flagship store. You can buy all of our sunglasses, our accessories. In the basement is our fulfillment center. So our guys are packaging stuff up, and then we have our offices there. And so it's all in one. It's really cool spot.
Kind of your headquarters.
Yeah, it's a cool conference room and stuff. So if you're ever in Boise, come on by.
I definitely will. That's awesome. So Taylor, you and your brothers, you were on season 4 of Shark Tank with Proof. What was that like?
Yeah, it was a crazy experience. I mean, it was really funny because at that point, we had a couple of our friends, like I think actually my brother-in-law was like, hey, have you guys heard of Shark Tank? I was like, yeah, I think I heard of that show, and didn't really think much of it. And then one of my other brother's friends like, you guys really need to try to get on that show. And it was really interesting. So my brother Brooks was the one that kind of, he was the one that was working that whole deal. And so he went to the ABC website, and there was literally a button that said apply for the show, and you go to that button and it was like sharktank@gmail.com. It was like
no way.
Yeah, it was so random. And so he's like, dude,
is this it?
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, this can't be it. So my brother shoots an email off and didn't think much of it. And then literally like the next day, we got a call back from the producer saying, hey, like we're kind of in like right in the middle of making our selections. So if you guys want to be in the mix, like I need a video like yesterday. And so they want to do like a quick video, just kind of introducing yourselves, showing the product real quick. And so it was really funny because we were actually gearing up for our first international trade show. We were about to go to Berlin like the next week. And so Tanner and I, we were like, dude, that show, man, people get tore up. Like, I don't know if we should do it.
Yeah. It could end up being a negative thing if we're not ready.
Absolutely. And so we basically told Brooks like, hey, if you want to work this, like, great, we'll support you, but we're going to focus on like prepping for this trade show. And so Brooks was like, man, you guys like, what the heck? This is like a huge opportunity for us. And he was like, why are these guys not as excited as me? Anyways, so he does a video, and literally in the video, Tanner and I are like in the back room packaging while he was filming us. And we're like, yeah, my name's Taylor. And like, this is our product and whatever. And we're like packaging while we were shooting the video. And
super excited about the
Brooks
video.
is like, guys, we can't do this. Like, we got to be a little bit more animated on this video. So we like stop and like actually do the video right. And so we send the video in, and then like the next week, they're like, hey, we really liked you guys. And so the way the process works is they assign a producer to you. And for a few weeks, they literally call you every week and work on your pitch and talk about your product and everything. So we were basically every week. It was really interesting. Every week, our producer would call us, and he was a really cool guy, really nice. He would run through the pitch and like kind of understand like the process. And then at the end of the call, is usually like an hour. Mm-hmm. At the end of the call, he's like, "All right, guys, we have what was it? I think it was like over like 2,000 applications.
Yeah,
and every week they make cuts." 2,000 brands or products or whatever that they were working with currently. It wasn't just applications; it was people that they narrowed it down to.
Wow.
And so he's like, we're gonna go make cuts. I'll call you next week if you made it onto the next cuts. And so it was just like a roller coaster, man. Because at that point we're like, oh man, this is a huge opportunity. And Tanner and I got on board. But so every week was just like a roller coaster. And then it was coming down to it, and he's like, guys, this is it. This is like the last cut. And he's like, one thing that the producers are saying is that they may, if we do choose you guys, then we may not bring all three of you out, just a cost standpoint and whatever. So
yeah,
if it comes down to it between being on the show and not being on the show, would you be okay if just Brooks came out? And we're like, yeah, of course. So anyways, got off the phone, and we're like, oh man, this is like like I said, every week is a roller coaster.
Yeah. How long was that process from the time that he clicked or sent the email to sharktank@gmail.com to like when you were having the conversations about the final selection and maybe actually making it on the show?
It was quick. Cause like I said, I mean, when they got our first video, they're like, we're right in the mix. So you guys need to like get on it if you want to be part of this like round. And so it was quick from that first video to going into the selections and making that final selection. It was probably a month or two. And then from there, they, like I said, so that week was just like every day we're on the phone, like, man, I wonder if we're going to make it or not. And they call us back like, you guys are coming to LA.
Wow.
And so we were just like pumped. And so you get to LA, and I was living in Hawaii at the time. And so they're like, oh, maybe we won't bring Taylor because that's a long flight and it's super expensive. But anyways, I got on the flight and everything. But, and you get to LA and you go into the first meeting, and it's everybody for that whole season. They film a whole season in like 2 or 3 days.
Oh, okay.
So every person from that whole season is in a room, and they say, hey, congratulations to making it to LA. But just because you're here doesn't mean anything. We bring in more people than we need. And then we're going to film more people than we actually are going to air, because that's just the way we need to do it to make
somebody
sure
gets on camera and they just fold.
Yeah.
What, like they need to have.
Yeah, they need to have backups.
Stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and then right when we get to LA, we meet with our producer. I mean, we've been talking to him on the phone the whole time, but we get there and he's like, all right, guys, it's like, you guys, I'm going to try to get you on the first day. Cause if you're on the first day, it's a really good sign, because that means they like you. And that's when the judges, the sharks are more fresh and it just goes better. And so he's like, I'm going to try really hard to get you on the first day. And so we go to the hotel that night, and the schedule comes out, and we're on the second day. And it's like, oh man, that's not a good sign. And everybody in the hotel lobby, like, super nervous, and like, oh, and like we would literally be talking to someone, they're like, oh, I didn't get on, and they flew all the way to LA and it's just like super disheartening. So we were on the second day before lunch, and so our producer's like, hey, that's actually a really good spot, because if you're on the second day before the afternoon, it's still really, really good. Mm-hmm. And so we'd been working on our pitch, and we had it down like pat. And so the second day we wake up, they take us to the studio, and we go to makeup. So it's so weird. And then they put us in this like green room, and we're in this green room for like hours, just sitting there. It's like stewing,
just sweating.
Oh yeah, no kidding. And it was like, man, like this is like insane. And then they take you from this green room and they like put you on deck or whatever. And same thing. It's just like, we're literally just sitting there like sweating, and you can't talk because when you're on deck, you're like pretty close to the set. And so we're just sitting there, and then they're like, all right, you're up. And so we go on, and so if you watch the show, they have those big doors that open up, right?
Yeah.
And it's legit, man. It's like, it's not like you're going in and like meeting the sharks beforehand and like palling out with them, right? It's just like there's like, all right, here's the doors, and when the doors open, you guys start walking.
Cameras are on.
Yeah, exactly. And
Wow.
we're like, holy cow! And so we were like sitting there like looking at each other like, holy cow! Like it was literally like the most nerve-wracking thing I've ever done in my life.
I can't imagine. Is the music playing? Because they have like the shark music playing on the
It's
episode.
worse because it's just silent. It's just like weird. And so, but the weirdest part is this. So they open the doors. We walk down the hall, and they open the doors, and the sharks are just there right in front of you.
Yeah.
And they say when you walk up, there's going to be these X's on the floor, and when you hit that X, just stop. And then we get these takes. So basically, for 60 seconds, we're just going to film you guys staring each other down. And so, and like I said, we hadn't like talked to him. And so it was literally the first time ever you just walk and hit these marks on the floor, and you stare into their eyes, and they're just staring back at you. And you're just like, man, this is so awkward. And it's just like super nerve wracking. You haven't said a word. And in the back of your head, like, I just hope I don't screw up this pitch that we've worked like 2 months on.
We've gone through all this. I'm here.
And word for word. And it's not even that long. Yeah, exactly. So anyways, and it's funny because if you go back and watch the episode, they do all the cuts, right? All the post editing and all that.
Right.
And there's times where like it pans to us and we just look like we're about to wet our pants. and it's all because they do that stare off thing at the beginning. So they just throw those stare offs into the episode like sporadically. And it's hilarious, man. Cause it's like,
you get like a nervous blink going.
Yeah. Like you got like a sweat. Yeah, no, absolutely. And so anyways, and then we go into the pitch, and I was leading off and I screwed up. Like you don't really notice because I just know I screwed up just because we practiced so much, and I changed it up a little bit, and it didn't sound horrible, but it didn't sound exactly like
you wanted it to. Yeah.
And then I was in charge of going over and taking the sunglasses to the sharks. And if you watch, like my hand is literally trembling. No, I'm not like, it's like bad. It's like, I think they had it on a tray, and like we have wood boxes in for all of our packaging, and they're like rattling. But yeah, so from there, after the pitch, that was like the most nerve wracking thing. And then up to that point, we've been to a lot of trade shows. And so, one thing that we did is we were on season 4. And so there was 3 seasons prior to us going on. And so each of us, the three brothers, we each took a season, and we literally watched every single episode, and we had spreadsheets, and we literally wrote down every single question that was ever asked and how we would answer that question.
Wow.
And then we had our numbers down pat. Like we knew exactly like what we would need, like what our walk away number was, and all of that. And so
cost to acquire a customer. I know that's a big one they ask all the time. Like,
yeah,
you just had a huge spreadsheet, all the possible questions. You weren't going to be unprepared for
absolutely
whatever they threw at you.
And that's the thing with Tanner and I mean, like I said, we kind of left it up to Brooks to do this, and he got really excited about it. And me and Tanner are like, man, we're going to look like idiots. Like they just tear people apart on this show. And,
right.
And we're a small brand. And if we go on there and look like idiots, it's just like, no one's going to take us serious. And so that was our main goal, is like, just don't look stupid.
Right. And so who were because the Sharks kind of rotate, there some regulars and some that come and go a bit. Do you remember who the 4 were?
Yeah.
On
so
your season?
We had Mark Cuban. Yeah. Mark Cuban, Damon, Mr. Wonderful, Robert Herkovich. And the ones that usually rotate during that season, at least, were,
is it Lori?
Lori and, oh gosh, Grenier.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She does the QVC stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we had Grenier.
Oh, okay.
And it was really funny because our producer's like, she's a flirt. Like she's going to like do weird stuff. Like when you guys are up there. And it was no joke, man. She was like winking at us. I'm not even joking. It was like threw me off. Like, what is this lady doing, man? It was weird. But yeah, so it was really interesting because those are the Sharks that we had. And initially we said, okay, if we had a choice, we'd either want to work with, Damon, just because he has that fashion background.
Yeah. Because he started Fubu, right?
Fubu, yeah. And he has a couple other brands. And then, or Mark Cuban, just because it's Mark Cuban, right?
Right.
And plus he has like a lot of online. He understands e-commerce a bit, and
he's a tech guy, and he can really help with that side. Right?
Absolutely. So, but it was interesting because if you watch the show, those 2 were the first to say, "I'm out." You know?
Oh no.
So we go through the show, and like I said, I felt like we did a pretty good job. We had our kind of how we were going to answer, and we presented ourselves well. But it was really funny because, I mean, you watch the show and it's 15 minutes long, right?
Right.
We were on set. We were in front of the Sharks pitching for about an hour and a half.
Wow.
And so it was really interesting because you get up there and we start talking and it's like, this is kind of like a trade show. People ask you questions and stuff. And so we knew our product, we knew our numbers. And so it was pretty easy. And the cameras are kind of above you. And so you kind of were able to tune them out and just have conversation. And then all of a sudden, like one of them would kind of interject and just be like, well, guys, for this reason, I'm out. And it's like, whoa, what's happening? What's that? Like, slow down. And all of a sudden it's like, boom, 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 boom. And it's like, turned out it was, so I think, Damon, it was either Mark or Damon went out first and then the other one out second. And then, Grenier, I forget her first name. She's like, hey, I'm actually involved with another sunglass brand on QVC. So I'm out. And then it ended up, it was Mr. Wonderful and Robert Herkovich. And, Mr. Wonderful, of course, wanted, his royalty
deal. Yeah.
And so we're like, all right,
he wanted
great,
some
cool.
amount per pair that goes out until he gets his money back.
Yep, exactly. And then
which is not super favorable for you guys.
No, absolutely. And then Robert's deal was essentially the same deal between Mr. Wonderful and Robert, but Robert didn't have the royalty deal. And so one of the questions I asked is like, well, why would we want to work with you when we have this? He's like, because I'm Mr. Wonderful. It's like, great.
Good answer.
Yeah, exactly. And so we kind of sat there and thought about it, and they're like, oh, we need an answer to the whole thing. And so our phone a friend was our dad. And so we go in the hallway and we got on the phone with our dad. And I mean, it was kind of cool just because our dad, they also did like a preview. So after we shot in LA a few months later, they came out to Boise and filmed like a preview kind of deal. And so our dad was part of that as well, kind of highlighting the family business and our background. And so it was kind of cool to kind of tie that in. And we called him. He's like, hey, you guys know your business. I mean, you guys make the best decision. And we knew our numbers. And so basically, the deal that they offered was just whack. I mean, our sales up to that point, basically at the end of that year, even just with our sales, they were valuing our company like less than $1 million. And that year we did $1 million just in sales. Yeah. And so we were looking at like, man, that doesn't make sense. We went back in and turned it down. But it's interesting because like I said, it's like a 15-minute commercial. Yeah. And at that time they basically said, that they had like 12 or 13 million viewers every Friday night.
Wow. And it's a good commercial.
Yeah. And so it was really cool. So we went back to Boise and like I said, they came out and did like a home package or whatever they call it, where they film us at home and kind of preview the product. And then, so for the viewing, we had like all of our friends out and we went to Boise State, and we actually have a really good relationship with them. And they opened up like a whole auditorium for us and had a bunch of people come in and we did the airing. And is honestly really sad because we actually called another company who's actually a Utah-based company, Kiss Sticks. They were like a season before us. And they said like, oh, you need to make sure your website's like ready to go, because when Shark Tank airs, you're going to have like over 1 million people on your website.
You're going to crush your site.
Yeah. And so we went out and like went with our host and like, hey, we need to be able to like have like 2 million, 3 million people on our website at one time. Like, oh yeah, no problem. So we did all these things to make sure our website was going to like be able to handle it. So right when it aired, we walked through the doors and they show our logo, our website crashes. And we were just like sitting there with our heads in our hands, like, what is going on?
Gotta be kidding me.
Yeah. And like, it was super cool experience because like, man, we're on national TV, but it's like missing all these sales. Right. And so literally like one of us was in the hall, like with our host, like trying to get a hold of them, trying to see what's going on. And, during the episode, and it was interesting because they do it in waves. So the East Coast, it was like an hour before, and our website crashed once, and then it came back, and we're like, okay, we're good. And then it went on air on the West Coast, and it crashed again.
Oh no!
So it was just like super disheartening. And that night, we ended up in the shop, calling our host and like trying to figure it all out, and we started packaging that night just because we had so many orders coming in. So yeah, that was kind of the Shark Tank experience in a nutshell.
Wow. So even with the website crashing, you still had a tremendous amount of sales that came through as a result of being on the show. Was it difficult? So it sounds like the offer that you got, it wasn't good, but was it difficult to make the decision to turn it down? Like, because when you watch the episode on TV, it's like you walk out in the hall, you call your dad, you walk back, and you're like, nah, like we can't do that. What about this? Was that difficult at all, or was it like, no, this isn't even close to a deal that we would consider?
To be honest, it's difficult just the fact that it's like, man, these people have the network, right? And so, I mean, even if it's not the best deal, it's like, well, I'm going to be able to work with this person. and hopefully work with this person and
some good connections could come out of it, or something else, even if the financial piece is like doesn't make total sense.
So it was tough. And it's funny because when you talk to people, they're like, oh, you guys totally just went on just to get the exposure. And I mean, that's obviously a drawing factor, but I mean, if the deal was right, we would have taken it, but it just wasn't. And after that, it was interesting because we were in LA and we had this rental car and we were driving around and it was just kind of silent. And my brother's like, you guys regret that decision? And it was like unanimous, like, no way.
Yeah.
So we were happy with it. Obviously, I mean, who knows what would have happened? I mean, it probably wouldn't have been a horrible deal, but at the end of the day, we were able to keep the ownership. Like I said, we have 12 million people that were able to see the brand. And it's interesting because at that time we were focusing a lot on sunglasses. And the very next day in our inbox, we had like 20 emails from eye doctors that wanted to bring in our product. And so that, because of Shark Tank, and we literally, like, all of them were asking, hey, you going to Vision Expo East, which is a huge prescription glasses trade show specific to that industry. And we had no idea about that trade show at all. So we literally got the last booth space. We called and like, hey, we want to come to the show, got the last booth space, and we wrote probably 30 orders in that show.
Wow.
And that was all because eye doctors saw it on Shark Tank, and that was a segment that we weren't going after. And today it's our fastest growing segment.
Okay, so like I said at the beginning, Taylor, you're doing a lot of different stuff. Recently, you started a Kickstarter campaign or project. For people who may not be familiar, what is Kickstarter and why did you choose that?
Yeah, so Kickstarter it's a really cool platform. It's essentially a way to launch a product without having a huge investment. So essentially, on Kickstarter, you basically have a project page, and you have a goal saying, okay, this is my product, and if you guys buy it now, it's basically pre-ordering it. And if I hit this goal of, like, let's say $10,000, then with that $10,000, I'll go to my manufacturing partner and manufacture the product. So it's basically, and one thing that's really cool about Kickstarter is that it's basically a proving ground, right? And so if you have an idea, so many people have ideas that just never do anything with it because it's like, I mean, analysis paralysis or whatever reason. They just,
or it's really expensive up front, right? And they maybe don't have the funding for it.
Exactly. No, that's a great point. And so with little, I mean, I wouldn't say no money down or anything, because you have to create a video and you have to do some product testing and get some prototypes and different things like that. But for a couple $100, literally, you could launch a product and see if the market responds to it in a positive way.
See if it's something that could catch on that's worth your time to go further with.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually just with Proof alone, I think we've done like 4 or 5 Kickstarters.
Oh, wow.
Just with Proof. And then we've helped a lot of friends. And so, I mean, I was looking at it the other day, just in general, we've been a part of like 10 Kickstarters over the last couple of years. And like I said, some of it's just helping friends and getting involved that way, and others it's with Proof, and other things this is like these side things. And then we've actually developed a goggle line, a ski goggle line that we basically launched on Kickstarter. That's kind of a sister company of Proof. And then my brother and I, Tanner, we've launched a couple of Kickstarters just on our own. And one of those, the most recent one, was a travel pillow that we developed. And we had a lot of success with that one. We did over $400,000. On Kickstarter.
So safe to say you met your goal.
Yeah, no, exactly. Exactly.
And with Kickstarter, like, is it that if you don't hit your goal, then the project kind of goes away, and people that did like pledge money or whatever they call it, like, get their money back, and you just kind of walk away from it?
Yeah.
But if you hit goal, then there are like different levels of, you know, if someone commits $20 to it or $50, they could get a different product or different level of product. And then some amount of time after that, then you basically fulfill those orders with part of that money that you got in as a result of the project. Cool.
Exactly.
So with the travel pillow, how did that idea come about? It sounds like you've done a ton of Kickstarters. You've been successful with it and kind of learned how to do that. Where did the idea for the pillow come from?
To be honest, is with the travel pillow, we just travel a lot. And so the idea behind the travel pillow is like, hey, let's not only create just a product, let's create a brand where it focuses on travel. And so the first product that we did was the travel pillow. And we went to went to TJ Maxx and Ross and the airport and just started buying like all these travel pillows. Said, okay, what do we like about this one? What don't we like? And we probably went through like 20 different travel pillows that we just kind of looked at and said, and we prototyped. And from there, we went to our good friend Alibaba and started sourcing different pillows from a couple different manufacturers and started testing those.
Oh, cool. Okay. So so you went there and you were trying to figure out, because I think with your pillow, the design is really cool. You can use it in a lot of different ways. Was that something that you had as a goal from the beginning? Or it's just like, we want to make something comfortable because everything we've tried, and you've traveled a lot, it just don't work very well. And that's been my experience too. Like usually they have like those ones that have the beads in them that are basically useless. They're not supportive at all. Yep. So did you want to have a bunch of different ways that it could be used from the beginning?
Yeah, I think I think that was definitely one of the key factors that we wanted to implement. And the thing with Kickstarter that we've realized is it's really interesting. The more features that you have, even if they're really small features, people really gravitate to it. So it's like, this is a feature. And so it's like, it's a really simple kind of formula that we use. When we go in to Kickstarter, like I said, we've done a lot of them, is we create the video and say, okay, here's the problem. Here's a solution. This is why it's a solution. Here's a feature. And that feature is connected to this benefit. And so this feature holds your chin up. So for instance, like you were saying, the pillow, you can wear it like a typical pillow that supports around the back of your neck, but then you can flip it around and there's basically a bridge, we call it a bridge section, that goes across the bottom of your chin, and you can literally rest your chin on the pillow. And so, okay, this is the feature. You can rest your chin on the pillow. The benefit is that when you're in an airplane upright, your head's not gonna be bobbing everywhere, right?
Right.
And so we literally just lay that out as simple as possible in that video and through pictures. And that's where we see the best results on Kickstarter, is just showing, hey guys, this is a problem that we see, and we wanted to create a solution. And this is how it is a solution through these features and benefits.
How do you go about marketing for Kickstarter?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a lot of different ways. I mean, the dashboard of Kickstarter actually shows you where your sales are coming from. And so the Kickstarter community itself is amazing. I mean, we did a lot of Facebook advertising, but even with that Facebook advertising, we probably spent about $80,000 just on Facebook advertising.
Wow.
And it's it's honestly those really, really annoying ads that you see on Facebook. Like, you have no idea what this pillow can do. This will change your life. Like, honestly, the most clickbaity type of ads. That's the type of stuff that we were doing.
Clickbaity. I like that.
That's literally, that's what it is. And it's hilarious because it's like, we had one of the best converting ones was a picture of me and Tanner as like 4-year-olds sitting on our step. My brother Tanner's only like a year older than me. And it was just like, you'll never believe these kids from you'll never believe what these kids invented, from lemonade stands to this product. It was like, this is like the weirdest ad. And it was just like the picture of me and Tanner. And I think I was wearing like a fanny pack. But it was just like, that's how we did Facebook advertising. And it's really, if they're converting well, you just dump more money into that ad, and all of a sudden you're getting the traffic coming to the Kickstarter project page. But like I said, the Kickstarter community itself is, once it's on Kickstarter and there's a popular page, and if you can get anywhere near that top of that Kickstarter popular page, I'm talking like top 20, you're golden. I mean, people, just the
natural traffic on this site, exactly. People are going to pick it up, and maybe you don't have to do as much on Facebook ads to get people to your specific page.
Yeah, I wish I should have looked at the numbers last night, but I mean, we had over 8,000 backers. And if I had to guess, I would say more than 2/3 of that was just from Kickstarter itself, the Kickstarter community. So people that are on Kickstarter just perusing the site that found it.
Wow. Okay, cool. So you met your goal, and are you sending out your orders now, or where are you at in the project?
Yeah, so that's a great comment. So when we start the project, we say, and I think we launched, oh gosh, when did we launch? I think it was like April, the end of April, beginning of May. We said that we would deliver our products by the end of May. And we started, all of a sudden the Kickstarter started doing really well, and our factory's like, there's no way we're going to be able to get it. So we actually ended all of those.
I need 100,000 pillows tomorrow.
Exactly. No. And so we ended all of those rewards, is what they're called. And so anybody that backed up to that point, we figured, okay, we could probably get them out before May. And then we created new rewards. And so anybody that backed us past that time, we had a later delivery.
Give you a little more runway to get those done.
Yeah, which was July. And so we've actually sent everything out. And so now we have a few backers that are still trickling in with their addresses and stuff. So we're still managing that, but we got all of our rewards out, which is a really great feeling. And so we got a few weeks after the Kickstarter ends, they wire the money to you. And so, like I said, we did like almost, well, with, I say 400,000. So we did like 370 on Kickstarter, and then we actually launched an Indiegogo, which is similar to Kickstarter, and pushed all the traffic to Indiegogo. And we did another like 50,000 on there. So we did over 400,000 altogether. And so, yeah, it was a really nice feeling to be able to get those out. And it's funny because it's like, oh man, we got a lot of cash, but then you have to pay your people that advertise for you, which we use a company. It's called Maddox Labs. They're here in Utah. They did a great job for us. And then pay your manufacturer, and then pay back our family that we loaned some money from.
Right.
But yeah, so it's really cool. I mean, that was our most successful project that we've ever done to date by far.
Wow. So, do you want this to be more than a Kickstarter project? Do you see doing more? Is that kind of like, hey, this is cool. This was fun. We want to move on to the next thing.
Yeah, no, so absolutely. So we've launched a website. It's called Range Travel Goods. And so the idea behind that is that we're going to start creating more products that have to do with travel, and then just have one site for it, and then probably go on Amazon. So the formula that we kind of want to put out is we'll launch a Kickstarter for everything, do the Kickstarter for 35 days or so, then kick it over to Indiegogo, let that run for another month. And by that time, our product will probably be in, deliver the product, and then turn it over to our website, and then also on Amazon. And so we have probably 4 or 5 products that we've been working on. And our next Kickstarter is going to launch here in the next couple of weeks.
Wow.
So
cool. Sounds like a good formula. You figured it out.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
No, it's been fun.
Okay, cool. Taylor, I think that's it. Did we cover everything?
I think so. No, I appreciate the time.
Yeah, you're a serial entrepreneur. I got pages of notes, and I don't think we even covered like half the stuff that you're doing.
I talk too much.
No, this is great. Thank you so much for being on.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. No, absolutely.
All right, cool, man. Thanks for listening. Thanks again to Taylor Dame and the whole Proof team. We have 2 winners for our giveaway this week. First, the winner of a pair of Proof wood sunglasses is Kirsten Atwood. Congratulations, Kirsten. Our second winner is Brian Nell. You'll receive the Duo Ultimate Travel Pillow. Congrats to the winners. Go to iwantproof.com to see the full line of Proof eyewear products, and rangetravelgoods.com to see Taylor's Ultimate Travel Pillow. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you like the show, give us some love on iTunes. All right, thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.